Hello and welcome to the RCB show. My name is Nicholas Rynne and I'm joined by Seamus Hayes. And Seamus obviously needs no introduction. Welcome, Seamus.
Morning, Nicholas. How are things?
Good now. Looking forward to the weekend, I suppose, and all the matches. I'm going to start off with hurling, Seamus. We'll go through the matches of last weekend. I suppose the first game up for us was on Saturday for Rynne versus Smith O'Brien's, and Rynne were favourites, at least, if not hot favourites. Of course, that's not the way. Smith O'Brien's had a different opinion on that, and they came out and they won deservedly. I have to say. I know you were down there, Seamus. What was your take on it?
Yeah, Smith O'Brien's showed a greater hunger, I felt, in this tie. It was a very, very warm afternoon, very difficult for anyone playing games, I suppose. Saturday was the hottest period from the beautiful weather we've had over the last week. But Smith O'Brien's were the hungrier team, They had a greater spread of scorers as well. There seemed to be an over-dependence maybe on Aidan McCarthy for scores for Rynne as you rightly said, they were the hot favourites going into the game. They had 2 points on the board from their opening round. Smith O'Brien's were comprehensively beaten in their opening round. So I suppose from that point of view, it was understandable that Kilnamona were favourites. But Smith O'Brien's felt that they needed to show that they were better than their first round results showed, and they were more fired up, if you like, for this one. And as the game went on, they seemed to grow in confidence. Keeping in touch with Kilnamona, they seemed to say to themselves as the game progressed, look, we can win this. And even when they were down to 14 men for the chosen period after Micheál Ryan picked up a second yellow card, they just drove on. And it's, when the game isn't going, it was very hard for a team to turn it around, and it wasn't going for Kilnamona, and they were struggling in certain areas. Fair play to Smith O'Brien's, they made it count.
Yeah. Tactically, I felt Smith O'Brien's got it right, and I think tactically Kilnamona got it wrong. A 2-man full forward line, lofting ball into a small man in the corner forward, great corner forward, but 2 men marking. Burke at centre back was immense for Smith O'Brien's. And I felt that had a big bearing on the outcome. Kilnamona never pushed up. These tactics, like for at club level, the short puck out even went against Kilnamona. So, like Sean Steckel at 6 mile bridge hurl, I think his thing is you do the hurl and I'll select the team. And these tactics, I don't know, I'd be very. What's wrong with the goalkeeper? 6 backs, 2 midfields, and 6 forwards at club level.
Yeah, the whole game seems to have changed, and most clubs now seem to be adopting this thing of short puck outs and finding a man. But just as most clubs are doing that, equally most clubs who are facing such a situation are moving up on the puck outs, and there are more and more short puck outs being intercepted, and it's leading to scores. And the score is one thing, but it's the lift it gives the team that gets the score, or maybe more importantly, it's the downward lift, if you like, if I want to have a better way of putting it, that it causes for the team who concedes that score. What happened with the second goal last week for Smith O'Brien's, with the goal, the short puck out was intercepted. Now, it was a great lift for Smith O'Brien's, but it was an awful downer for Kilnamona, and you could see it reflected in their play. The players kind of sank when that score went in, because they knew then that it was going to take a massive turnaround to pull something out of that game. So, and especially in the heat that was in it, I would have felt that the ball should have been let go as long as possible and hoped that breaks would come. There's bound to be a few breaks at the other side. And as you say, they have some lively young players, some fellas with pace, and a ball or two was going to break to them, and with Aidan McCarthy around, if a ball breaks to him, more often than not, it's over the bar or it's in the net. So from that point of view, I suppose it didn't work for Kilnamona, but they're in a position now where they have to win the next day, and there's a number of clubs in the same position going into the last round, which makes it all the more interesting.
It does make it interesting, and fair play to Smith O'Brien's. they've given themselves the chance now to if everything goes right for them, they can find themselves in the quarterfinals. So, and the very best of good luck for them. They produced the goods on Saturday, and they came out with what they deserved. The other game on Saturday was Clonlara against Whitegate, which is a very entertaining game, and the scoreline 4 points in it, but it went right to the wire. I felt until the last maybe 5-6 minutes.
Yeah, it was a game again. Clonlara were in the position that they had to win. Having been beaten by Fecal in the opening round, they knew that another defeat would leave them chasing a playoff place or a knockout place. So they had to win. Whitegate are very, very difficult to beat. They're a very united bunch, a small enough panel, but they're hard to overcome. And so that was the case again last Saturday. Now they've lost 2 of their games now, so they're under pressure. From that point of view, and like they're noted battlers, they have avoided they've been tipped for relegation. I don't know how many times in the last decade, and they've avoided it all the time. So that's another consideration now for clubs going into the next round of games. There'll be huge contests the week after next in that round of games. But Clonlara are back in the mix now. So we all know they have a fierce, talented bunch of players. Just to get the right mix, I suppose, on the day, and they're still down a few players through injury. Colin Galvin, and not many clubs can afford to be down players of that standard, but that's where they are. But they have a lot of good young fellas, and if they can get the mix right, they will have a say.
Absolutely, yeah. And Newmarket and Fecal, then they played out a draw. Fecal's second draw in this competition. I think Fecal won the draw, I suppose, for want of a better word. They were a goal down, they were 4 points down, they got the point, and then they got, with the last puck of the game, they came up with the equaliser. So, the battle is never over till the fat lady sings. I suppose Newmarket will be they thought they were home and hose, but it ended up that way anyway.
The interesting question is how important that result will prove come the end of the league section. It could be very costly for the market to have dropped a point, as some of the people might see it. It could be very valuable for Fecal to have gained that point. There's a lot to play for in the last round. This is a 5-team group, so there's still 2 rounds to go, and there's still an awful lot involved. But it just shows you again the spirit of the parish. Fecal refused to give in. They're another a relatively small squad, I suppose, and relatively close-knit group, and they have produced some great results in recent years. And I suppose this will go down as another one of them. They looked to be beaten all the way through. I suppose looked as if they were going to lose by a couple of points, but they just refused to accept that and back to the end got a reward. Yeah, they did get the reward, is right. I suppose Ballyea did against Castle, near neighbours, obviously. Ballyea didn't have it all their own way. They came out with a good win in the end, but for long periods, Castle were in the game. Yeah, well, I suppose if ever Castle were going to lift the game, it was going to be for this one. Their fellow parishioners, there'd be good rivalry there. And Castle needed something, from their opening results. They hadn't anything on the board worthwhile other than they had a point from a draw, but they needed something in this. And while they didn't get the points, they certainly showed, that they're improving with each game. To be fair to Ballyea, they went into the game without their captain James Murphy, who had been ill all week, with a subdued Tony Dillis, who had been very doubtful up to throw in because he had been out ill with illness during the week as well. But in true Tony Kelly style, when the chips were down in the second half, he produced 3 magnificent points, I suppose, which killed a likely fight back, if you like, by Tyrcastle. Ballyea are going along nicely. They'll be happy. They're in a strong position. They're effectively in the playoffs at this stage. And if they can stay injury free and keep it going, they're going to be very much involved in the concluding stages. Yeah. I suppose with Tony Kelly, you'd have to put him into a pin, and then he wouldn't be even too sure holding it. So it's just the quality of the men. And then of course we had another. I won't call it a shock, but Kilmaley were hot favourites going in against Clooney Quinn to advance, having been played so well in their first round, and then
and Clooney Quinn came out and they played some brilliant hurling, shot into a lead, and they just kept that lead right up to the end. Superb stuff from Clooney Quinn, really.
Yeah, and I suppose when the championship draws were made and as the league progressed, when news kind of filtered through of a lot of retirements, if you like, of the more senior members from the Clooney Quinn team, like Killian Duggan, Conor Harrison, Fergal Lynch, even though he's named in the squad but not playing, players like that who have given so much to the club and been the backbone of the team, and then they had a number of serious injuries, has ruled out Mikey and Jimmy Curry at the moment. They're hoping to have them back fairly soon. A lot of people kind of didn't give much hope to Clooney Quinn to make it through, but they certainly put themselves in the frame to be in the shake-up for honours with their performance at the weekend. They were very, very impressive. Now you can argue that Kilmaley weren't good, but was it a question of Clooney not letting them look good? Certainly, Clooney were far sharper, far hungrier. Anytime a Kilmaley man was about to win possession, there were at least three Clooney Quinn men around him in every sector of the field, and they were much sharper. The pace of Clooney Quinn was frightening in many ways. The way they opened up the Kilmaley team, and with Ryan Taylor and Peter Duggan, in the mix, they certainly were deserving winners. People will be looking up at them now, and there'll be an interesting game the next day between themselves and Éire Óg, because Éire Óg really need to be a win to be sure of being in the playoff, to be sure of having a chance of being in the playoffs, just as Kilmaley need to win. So the final round of games in this group, there's an awful lot to play for. Definitely an awful lot to play for. It could finish up. The score difference will determine who qualifies in this group, but it's certainly there's some mouth-watering games next week in that group.
Absolutely. It's a football weekend this weekend, Seamus, so I'm going to concentrate on football now. There was a lot of intermediate hurling games on. There was wins for 6 Mile Bridge, wins for Bodyke, wins for and a big win for Tugger over St. Joseph's. So there was a lot of games there. We just don't have time in the programme, but we'll come back to the intermediate again and we'll go through it as it progresses. Big weekend in football this weekend, Seamus. The second round of the championship was on, and on Saturday the first game in Cusack Park is Cratloe versus Kilmahel. That's on in Cusack Park, and at 4:30 in Cusack Park. This should be an interesting game. Enough Cratloe favourites, as I mentioned.
Yeah, Cratloe favourites had a good win in the first round over St. Joseph's. They have most of the players that have brought them a lot of honours over the last 7 or 8 years in the mix. Interesting game for Colin Collins, of course, their manager, who's a native of Kilmahel, and was on Kilmahel's only championship winning team back in 1980. So from that point of view, maybe he's in a bit of an awkward spot, if you like, I suppose. But he's a Cratloe man now, and he'll be doing everything to steer Cratloe to victory. Kilmahel, having lost their opener, needs something in this one, I suppose, to keep their hopes strong of making it to the playoffs, like they were quarter-finalists last year, and they'd hope to build on that for this year. So there's a lot to play for in this group, there's no doubt about that. First round results may not necessarily, you have a situation where all 4 teams could end up on this, with a win each by this weekend, which would leave it interesting going into the last round. But as of now, you'd have to say Cratloe are favourites for this. They look the more settled team on paper anyhow, and look the more experienced team.
Yeah, we look forward to that one. The second game is on in Milltown on Saturday evening, 6 o'clock, and this is a really interesting one. It's Corofin versus St. Brickens, 2 teams who are going really well. Corofin winning their opening game, of course, and St. Brickens being beaten by the county champions by the narrowest of margins. So this should be a cracking game, which I feel.
Yeah, this should be a cracking game, and I expect it's a game that will bring out not Clare followers in particular in big numbers, because there's a lot expected from this Corofin team. They have, they've won their league and won promotion to the Cusack Cup. They have a very talented group of players, a particularly lively forward line. And even though they were down 3 or 4 key players in the opening round because of injuries, etc., they still eked out a great result. And they're going to be hard to stop. Now, Brickens disappointed with their first round loss to Éire Óg, lost by a point. going into this game without their captain as of now. Anyhow, Dale Masterson, who was sent off the last day, I understand that may be under appeal. I'm not sure of that, if it'll be heard or not before the weekend, but I understand that there's an appeal being considered there. But he will be a loss to them. There's no doubt in the world about that. They are a talented bunch. These are two very lively sides who move the ball very fast. A lot of short interpassing by both sides. And it'll come down to who can finish the best. And like the last day, Robin Mounsey, the player senior hurler, was absolutely outstanding for Corofin. 6 points in play. Can he repeat that? The Cahill brothers, Garrod and Dermot, two key players as well, prominent amongst their scorers. A lot will depend on how Brecons maybe can cope with the threat of those couple of players. Now Brecons have a good squad as well. They've been knocking on the door for the last 2 years. Won the Cusack Cup earlier this year, so they know that this is a massive game for them. This is going to be certainly a biggie, and going on first round form is one that could go either way. Maybe Brecons' greater experience might give them an edge. Hard to know though, because Corofin, they're not worried, I'd say, or they don't seem to take notice of reputations. Like, they play their own game. They're a very, very fit team, very well organised by Douglas Hurley and Jeff O'Sullivan and company. They have them in great shape. So should be a great game, and one that should bring out a big crowd.
Yeah, and isn't it great news for Clare football, Seamus, that you have North Clare teams competing now at the highest level, especially those two teams?
Yeah, it certainly is. And Ballyvaughan have been so close to the Joan Ray title for the last 2 or 3 years. They've been in a couple of finals, and unfortunately they've been clipped in a couple of those. The Scanners seem to be on a bounce back again. They've had a couple of lean years where they dropped down from senior all the way down to junior, but they've had a good run there in a league final. They won their first round game in the Joan Ray Championship. So North Clare seems to be picking up a good bit forum-wise again now, which is great. It's needed. Clare football needs teams in those areas going well, and hopefully that they will contribute a few players to county squads as well, because you're all the time looking for a few players to strengthen your county squads or to provide more options. So yeah, it is great, and it would be great to see some one of those going all the way and capturing honours this year.
Absolutely. In the Simon against Kilmurray Brecon in Cusack, it's on the Cusack Park, I think. So it's Saturday evening. It's 6:30. One in the Simon must win, but Kilmurray Brecon, it's a tall order, I feel.
Yeah, it's a tall order. I saw Kilmurray Brecon in the opening round against Dunbeg. Then they were under pressure for a while. But they were able to respond. In the early in the final quarter in that game, Dunbeg rallied to within a point of Kilmurray, but Kilmurray were able to step up a gear. They have a lot of players coming back, like Shane Hickey returning from injury this year has been a big lift to Kilmurray. They have players like that. They have experienced players, and the likes of Shane Hickey, Enda Coughlin, Martin McMahon. These guys, they've been around the block several times, and they know what it takes to win. The word is that Keelan Sexton is due back from the States this weekend, so he'll probably play a part at some stage in this game. So in his time, people are wondering when they're going to strike and make the breakthrough. They've undoubted numbers of talent. They've had great success at underage, but when most is expected of them, they have disappointed. There's no doubting the ability within the squad, and if and when they strike it right on a given day, I think there's few clubs in the county that would be able to stay with them, but they haven't been able to do that just yet. They have so much talent. I suppose getting the right mix and getting the right squad together, but they have a lot of good young players coming through. This, as you say, is a must-win game for them. They have to. They could still qualify and lose this, but win this, and you're right back in the mix. And also, it would be a massive boost to beat a club of the status, the Kilmurray Brecon. But the odds are with Kilmurray to put a second win on the board.
Yeah, absolutely. Another team who needs something on the board after they were beaten by Corofin in the first round, and that's St. Joseph's Milltown. They faced the county champions. It's not an easy one for them to get points from. Again, they won't be knocked out, but it's very hard if you lose your first two opening games.
Yeah, certainly it is, and you're up against the county champions. You're up against a team that is settled and going well. Now, Milltown have had their share of injuries. Gordon Kelly's been massive loss to Milltown at the moment. I know he's around a while, but Gordon's leadership is invaluable, and he's unlikely to play any football this year. He's recovering from surgery on a troublesome leg injury. He is a loss. Milltown certainly have to step up considerably from their first round performance. And in that game, having got back from being behind for most of the game and got back to level and go ahead, to be caught at the end was the kind of a signal the way they were caught. I suppose, if you like, but this is the one they're facing now. Reports that Aero may not have Kieran Russell this weekend, that he may be out of the country. Remains to be seen if Aaron Fitzgerald has recovered from injury he picked up in that first round. He didn't play the hurling last week. If either of those two are out or both, that would be a massive loss to the town side, because they're two of their key players and two of their key defenders. But it remains to be seen. They have young talent coming through. They have a strong setup. The odds, you'd have to say, are with Aero, but in the past, Aero have struggled, particularly when they move out to West Clare. They've struggled, just no doubting their ability. And if Milltown are serious about getting to the playoffs and getting back into contention, they have to be really fired up for this one. And there'll have to be an all-out drive from the Milltown club throughout the 60 minutes of this if they're going to have a chance of pulling something out of it.
Yeah. Lissy Casey had a fine win their first opening game, and they faced St. Joseph's, who put in a good performance but didn't get the points the last day out. So they'll be looking to get points, but against Lissy Casey, I think Lissy Casey will be favourites for this one.
Yeah, the word is that I didn't see the first round game now, and the word is that Lissy Casey were impressive enough in that game. They have some very talented young forwards coming through at the moment, which is a big boost, because I suppose forwards are always needed in counties like Clare in football situations. So Lissy Casey have a few coming through, but so have Bearfield. Bearfield have been they've been strong at underage in recent years. They have this group, they're a talented young group. They were unlucky, I believe, to a certain extent in the first round against Cratloe, and that they conceded a couple of what would be seen as soft goals in the early stages of that game, and fought back then, and were within 2 points of the Cratloe men at the final whistle. So they'll take confidence from that, and this is one that they'll want to win. They know that if they win this, that they're right back in the mix. Equally, Lissy Casey know if they can win this, that they're in a strong position to make it to the playoffs. And with players like Aaron Griffin and the Fanukins, involved, Lissy Casey will probably carry the favourites tag.
Yeah, there's a young fellow out there called Shane Griffin. He had a storming game the last day. He scored 2 goals at the point, and his cousin Aaron Griffin scored 6 points for Ballyea in the hurling. So if he can repeat, if both of them can repeat that for him, it'll make it busy.
I tell you, and Aaron scored 4 points in the football first round the last day. And
that's right. Yeah.
There's another young fella there, a teenager as well, after coming out of minor, Conor Meany. Who's very sharp and going well for Lissy Casey. So, they have talented young forwards up there, but it's all on the day. And this is a big one in many regards, because if they can win this, they're in a strong position, as I said, to make the playoffs.
Make the playoffs, absolutely, yeah. And in our final game of the weekend at senior level is Clonagad versus Dunbeg. That's on actually in Cusick Park as well. It'll be right after the Lissy Casey game, Lissy Casey St. Joseph's game. Clonagad it'll be points after beating in his diamond. Dunbeg, by all accounts, put it up to Kilbury Bricken. Just didn't get the result, obviously. So they really need something on the board as well.
Yeah, and I suppose after a few lean years, there's a bit of life. Well, maybe there was always life there, but there's a bit of a drive in Dunbeg again, and they know that a win of this will bring them right back into contention, and they have shown that they're never far away, and any club that takes it for granted that they might beat Dunbeg on any given day will find out that they're cost that that's not always the case. Dunbeg they're a proud football club. They have a good mix of youth and experience at the moment. Then they have a fella called David Tuberty. You can't give away frees inside the 50-yard line when he's around. And he's their go-to man. So I think they will certainly make life difficult for Clondigad. But then again, any team that has Gary Brennan, you have to be wary of them. And he had a tremendous first round game. He's a class act, and how Dunbeg can cope with him. They'll have to try and ensure that he sees as little of the ball as possible. So they'll have to try and be very focused on making sure that they play the ball to areas where Gary isn't, and that's a very difficult thing to do. But I think this one's going to be very tight. I honestly do expect it to be very tight. Again, we'll probably carry the favourites tag. They have the boost of that first round win, but it's one that I expect will be very tight.
Yeah. And there's a raft of intermediate football games on the weekend as well, Seamus. Which ones stand out for you?
Yeah, there's a raft of ones in Kildysart. I suppose they've been tipped by many. They've been so close over the last 4 or 5 years, beaten a number of finals, beaten with last-minute scores. They're playing Navo and they'll be hotly fancied to win that, although I gather that they suffered a bad blow during the week. Dermot O'Donnell, their outstanding forward, who has been the key man in the league all the way to the Hughes Cup final, I believe picked up a serious knee injury and maybe out for the rest of the year. I think their scan's been done as we speak. And if that's the case, that's a massive blow to them. He certainly was going to feature in the Clare panel, in my opinion, in the coming year, because he's been so strong. So if he's out, it'll be a big blow. But they still have a lot of talented players. I suppose the other one, Clare. I think the interesting game might be Clare and Ennistimon. They both won their first round games, and this is an Ennistimon team with a good mix of very experienced players who have played senior and some very good young players coming through. Clare relegated at the end of last year, hurt by being relegated because they're a proud senior club. They had a big win in the opening round over the Banner. So this game could tell a lot about who's going to be in contention to be promoted this year. Clare obviously would be favourites, but I suppose most people see the intermediate title between Clare and Kildysart at this stage. Yeah. Kilrush would have a shout as well, of course. Kilrush won their first game, but only just to beat Navon, and they'll be expected to beat Coolmeen this week.
Yeah. So there's a whole raft of games between seniors, intermediate, and junior. Pitches will be open all over the county. There'll be people there on duty. There'll be referees on duty. There'll be umpires. They very rarely get mentioned, these people. Quite often they they're called mushrooms and all this kind of different names that they're called. But the games can't go ahead without these people. And we need to remember that, and we need to remember to be courteous to these people as well, because they do a great job for us.
I certainly agree with you. And there's a massive effort being made from the referees into it to ensure that there's full team of officials at every venue, linesmen, fourth officials, and it is having a bearing. And then on top of it, as you say, the clubs that are hosting these games provide stewards to ensure that people stay where they should stay and stay outside the white line and whatnot. So there's a huge amount involved, and a huge amount of work goes in, and a big group of people without whom these games can't go ahead. So it is important that from now on, maybe the weather mightn't be as kind as it has been for the last couple of weeks, so it might be harder to get these people out. But they're doing a big job, and I think that's something that's a core trait, I suppose, of the GA up and down the country, in every venue and in every county. So, but you're right. Without those people, we'd have no games.
Yeah, I always find the referee does a fair enough job, except for my own club is playing.
most people are the same way. Yeah.
Your story, but without those people, news breaking that the Camogie back road, the Camogie management team has stepped down. This comes as a bit of a shock, I think, does it?
Yeah, I'm certainly surprised at that. I know they were disappointed that they didn't make it to the All-Ireland quarterfinals at senior level this year. A few results maybe didn't go their way, and I suppose they got to the All-Ireland Junior was a semi-final. but an awful lot of work has been done, and they've maintained their senior status. There's an awful lot of progress that has been made in Clare Camogue over the last year or two. I don't know if anybody saw this coming, and it has come certainly as a shock, and it will be hard to replace the group that were there. They knew Camogue inside out. They had a lot of things in place for the benefit of Camogue. I know it's coming at a time now when the senior championship is, I suppose, in full swing, having started. The senior club championship having started last weekend. Huge amount of teams. I think the biggest number of teams ever playing in the various adult competitions across the grades from senior down to junior B. So from that point of view, with Camogue going so well, it is very surprising. And the search is on seemingly for a new management team. Whether there was any particular reason for this announcement, I honestly don't know.
Yes, and what was particularly pleasing was the way that they were over the juniors as well, and that they were going to be bringing, after a very successful year with the juniors, that they were going to be looking at players from that panel as well to bring onto the senior panel. So it is a big surprise. I don't, definitely nobody saw it coming, for sure.
Yeah, no, it certainly is. And as I say, I know that some people might have been a bit critical of the fact that maybe that didn't use more of the juniors on the senior team during the year, when, in the concluding stages of the thing, but people were saying, well, they're trying to keep the junior panel intact, but that's part of the scene and that's part of management. But they certainly had a great setup, and players were gaining in experience and they were improving all the time, and it was all building towards getting a stronger senior team, I'd say, for the next year or two. So from that point of view, it is hugely surprising.
Yeah, with another small little bit of luck, they could have had a Munster Championship. They were only seconds away from it. And if in the All-Ireland series, they just came up really they were just pricked at the post in a couple of those very important games. So it was.
Well, and I suppose the Waterford game, at the start of the campaign when the draws were made, people would have said that have beaten Waterford, but Waterford were one of the big pluses of the Camogue Championship. I suppose they really put a lot of teams. They put a lot of teams to the pin of the collar, and it just showed that they had improved hugely down in Waterford in their game. So it's hard. We all know it's very difficult to win. You have to get everything right, and there's always some other team out there that's improving as well and improving rapidly. So, but I thought Clare Camogue had a relatively good year. Disappointing, yes, we didn't qualify for the concluding stages, but great progress was made, and that makes this decision all the more surprising.
Yeah. And it's like the number 16 bus when you're waiting for it. When one comes, another one comes. Evan Talty has decided to step down from the ladies' Gaelic football as well, which is. I thought he might give it another year, but I suppose Evan, I saw his statement, he's given as much as he can, he feels.
Yeah, he has done huge work there as well. And I suppose he's also, from his own personal point of view, like he's a successful businessman, and I suppose he's a successful business to run as well. But he has done huge work. He's put a lot of structures in place that will benefit ladies football. And I think that's the big plus. Okay, they didn't maybe get the results that they wanted, and it's so hard to win at any level now. It's so hard, but he has put huge structures in place that can only benefit ladies football. And the game is strong and clear. Maybe there's one or two clubs quite a bit ahead of the others, like the Banner ladies now. But that's the way things go, and it's up to the other clubs to bring their standard up. But Clare football, ladies football, is in a good position. We won a minor title there just a week or two ago, an All-Ireland minor title. And there's players, who'll come through from that. And the club games, quite a high standard at the various club games across the county at the moment. So I'd say the future looks good for them. To get a good management team now is obviously a task facing their executive.
Yeah, there's a gratitude to Evan Talty and to the Camogue people as well. They won't be easily replaced, Seamus. It's not easy to get a manager who's going to be able to give that kind of time, and everybody has busy lives now, so it's a huge commitment to be on the training pitch 4 or 5 nights a week, and you're away every weekend.
I think that's the big task. It is a huge commitment, and in the world that we live in, and for a county like Clare in the west of Ireland, many of your players are based in other counties, and to get them back and back from Dublin and Cork and Galway and whatever they may be based, back for training midweek and everything, because you have to do that come championship time. You can't just rely on the training session at weekends, because you'll have matches. So every management sees that there's a massive commitment required. You have to have strength and conditioning coaches and physiotherapists and dietitians, and you're dependent on the players to buy into that as well. And if you and a lot of players playing are students and they're away in college, and there's a lot at stake for them as well. They're studying, they could be in their final year of studies, there's exams, there's lectures to be attended. So the commitment is massive, and from that point of view, I suppose it's difficult, but there seems to be a group of players in both camogie and hurling who are prepared to do that. But organising it is nearly a full-time job now.
Yeah, absolutely. And now putting on my parochial hat, I suppose I want to congratulate the Aina Kilmore under-13s with a great, fantastic win over a very gallant Clarecastle side in Cusick Park there during the week. So we're delighted with this, and underage is very important to be winning, Seamus, to get to if you want to get progress as a club. So
it is, and I suppose that win was a great win. I saw a few minutes of that on Monday evening, and it was great to see the skill that was been shown. And I suppose from Aina Kilmona's point of view, they have had a lot of underage success now in maybe the last decade at different age levels. So it's all pointing towards the long-awaited breakthrough at senior level. Which is difficult. It's very hard to translate the underage success onto the adult level, as most clubs have found. But it's something that the more, if you keep winning and keep progressing at underage level, it's going to pay off at some stage. So from that point of view, I think Aina Kilmore Hurling followers can certainly be confident about looking to the future.
Yeah, well said, Seamus, and thanks very much. James, we've come to the end of our show. Thanks very much, as usual, for coming on and being so insightful. Yeah, you've always had your finger on the pulse of whatever's happening in Clare, in hurling, football, or camogie, whatever it might be. So looking forward to the weekend now. So I'll probably see you around Cusick Park or Milton or somewhere. And thanks very much, Seamus. Really appreciate you coming on this morning.
No doubt. Okay. Bye.
Okay. So that's it from us this week. We'll be joining again next week, and we'll discuss the happenings of the weekend. Hopefully we'll have a good, and I'm sure we will have a great weekend of football. So, slán go fóill.